Doctors turned off the machines and declared the Korean Mafia boss dead. But one black waitress refused to believe it. She stepped in and saved his life. The fluorescent lights of Seoul Memorial Hospital flickered as Becky Washington pushed through the emergency room doors, her white waitress uniform still stained with coffee from the morning shift. She shouldn't be here, had no right to be here. But when Mr. Park, the cafe's manager, had grabbed her arm with tears streaming down his face and said, "Boss Kim, accident, he's dying," she'd run the 6 blocks without thinking. Now standing in the sterile hallway, she could hear it, that terrible final sound, the flatine, one continuous tone that meant a heart had stopped beating. A team of doctors in green scrubs stood around a gurney, their shoulders slumped in defeat. And there, on that metal bed, lay Kim Sung-ho, her boss, the man who'd hired her 3 months ago when no one else would. The man whose dark eyes had held hers a beat too long every morning when she brought him his Americano. Extra shot, no sugar. "Time of death," the lead surgeon said in Korean, pulling off his gloves with the finality of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. He was older, maybe 60, with gray streaking his temples and the exhausted look of someone who'd been fighting death all day. Massive internal hemorrhaging, severed femoral artery. He lost too much blood before the ambulance even got there. There was nothing we could do. Becky's medical training, 2.5 years at Howard University before her father's cancer had drained every dollar and forced her to drop out, kicked in automatically. Her eyes scanned the monitors, the IV lines, the trauma kits scattered across the crash cart. She moved closer, pushing past a nurse who tried to stop her. "Miss, you can't be in here," the nurse said in accented English, recognizing Becky's foreignness immediately. But Becky wasn't listening. She was staring at Kim Sung-ho's chest, at the way it was positioned, at the blood pooling beneath the gurney in a pattern that didn't make sense for a femoral artery bleed. "How long has he been flatlined?" she asked in Korean, broken, accented, but functional enough. The lead surgeon turned, irritation flashing across his features. "Who are you?" "How long?" Becky repeated, moving to the side of the gurney. Her hands hovered over Kim Sung-ho's chest, not touching, just feeling the space. Something was wrong, something the doctors had missed. 6 minutes. Now step back before I have security remove you." 6 minutes. Brain damage started at 4. But Becky had seen something in her trauma rotation, a case study about pericardial tamponade, when blood or fluid accumulates in the pericardial sac around the heart, compressing it until it can't beat. It could mimic death, could stop the heart completely while the patient was technically still savable. She looked at Kim Sung-ho's neck. The jugular veins were distended, bulging against his skin. His skin had a grayish-blue tint, but not the waxy pallor of true death. And there, she leaned closer. His chest was asymmetrical, the left side slightly more raised than the right. "He's not dead," Becky said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "He has cardiac tamponade. The blood isn't in his leg anymore. It's in his pericardial sac. You need to drain it. Now!" The surgeon stared at her like she'd spoken in tongues. "Young lady, I've been a trauma surgeon for 30 years. This man is dead. His heart stopped 6 minutes ago. Even if you were correct, which you're not, the brain damage would be catastrophic. You're wrong." Becky's hands moved to Kim Sung-ho's wrist, feeling for something, anything. And there, barely perceptible, more memory than pulse, a flutter. So faint it was almost imaginary, but it was there. "I can feel a pulse. Thready, almost gone, but it's there. His heart is still trying to beat, but the tamponade is preventing effective contractions. That's why the monitors show flatline. The electrical activity is too weak to register, but it exists." "Security!" the surgeon barked. But Becky was already moving. She grabbed a large bore needle from the crash cart, an 18-gauge spinal needle, longer and thicker than standard IV needles. "If you're not going to do it, I will. Pericardiocentesis, sub-xiphoid approach. If I'm wrong, he's already dead and I've done no harm. If I'm right, you just declared a living man dead and walked away." The room froze. Every eye was on her, this black woman in a coffee-stained uniform, holding a needle like a weapon, standing over the body of one of Seoul's most powerful men. Because everyone in this hospital knew who Kim Sung-ho was. Not just a cafe owner, not just a businessman, the head of the Kim family, one of the three organizations that ran Seoul's underworld with iron efficiency. You're insane, the surgeon said, but there was hesitation in his voice now. Doubt. I'm a third-year medical student from Howard University, Becky said, her hands steady despite her racing heart. I dropped out to work, but I had the highest grades in my trauma surgery class. I've studied this exact scenario, and I'm telling you, this man is still alive. A younger doctor stepped forward, early 30s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Dr. Han, what if she's right? We declared him dead, but we never checked for tamponade. We assumed the flatline was from blood loss, but if we're wrong, we could be sued for malpractice, Dr. Han snapped. If we're wrong, a man dies who didn't have to, the younger doctor shot back. He looked at Becky. Do you know what you're doing? Yes. Becky's voice was steel. I need him flat. Tilt the head of the bed up 30 degrees. I need ultrasound guidance if you have it, but I can do it blind if necessary. And I need everyone to shut up and let me work. For one endless moment, no one moved. Then the younger doctor grabbed the bed controls, tilting Kim Sung-ho's upper body. Young-soo, get the portable ultrasound. Dr. Han, either help her or get out, but make a choice. Dr. Han's face went through a series of emotions. Anger, fear, calculation. Then grudgingly, if you kill him, you'll be arrested. He's already dead according to you, Becky said, not looking away from Kim Sung-ho's chest. So I can't kill him twice. Her hands moved with precision she didn't know she still possessed. She palpated the xiphoid process, the small pointed cartilage at the bottom of the sternum, and found the angle she needed. The ultrasound machine arrived, and the younger doctor positioned the probe just below the sternum. There, on the grainy black and white screen, was the proof, a large dark collection of fluids surrounding the heart, compressing it like a fist. There, Becky breathed. See it? That's at least 300 milliliters of blood in the pericardial sac. His heart can't expand, can't fill with blood. That's why there's no effective pulse. Even Dr. Han's face changed. My God, she's right. Hold him steady, Becky said. She took the needle, angled it at 45 degrees, and began to advance it beneath the xiphoid process, aiming toward the left shoulder. Every millimeter mattered. Too shallow and she'd miss the pericardium. Too deep and she'd puncture the heart itself, killing him instantly. The room was silent except for the monitor's steady drone of flatline and the sound of Becky's breathing. She felt the needle pierce through layers, skin, subcutaneous tissue, muscle. Then a subtle pop as it entered the pericardial space. She pulled back on the plunger, and dark blood began filling the syringe. I'm in, she said quietly. Aspirating now. She withdrew slowly, carefully, filling one syringe, then another, then another. 60 milliliters, 100, 150. With each withdrawal, she could see the fluid collection on the ultrasound getting smaller. And then, the monitor beeped, once, twice, a rhythm emerging from chaos. We have cardiac activity, the younger doctor shouted. Sinus rhythm, rate 40, 50, 60. He's coming back. Kim Sung-ho's chest heaved suddenly, violently, as his body dragged in air. His eyes snapped open, dark, confused, wild with pain and disorientation. He tried to sit up, and 4 sets of hands pushed him back down. Mr. Kim, stay still, Becky said in Korean, her hand on his shoulder. You were in an accident. You're in the hospital. You're safe. His eyes found hers locked on. For a moment, confusion gave way to recognition. Becky! His voice was a rasp, barely audible. What? How? Don't talk, just breathe. You're going to be okay. She turned to Dr. Han. He needs a full trauma workup. CT scan to check for other injuries. Type and cross for transfusion. He's lost significant blood volume. And someone needs to monitor that pericardial sac. If it fills again, you'll need a surgical window. Dr. Han was staring at her like she'd walked on water. Who are you? Nobody, Becky said, stepping back as the medical team swarmed in. Just a waitress who used to want to be a doctor. Kim Sung-ho's hand shot out, catching her wrist with surprising strength for a man who'd been dead minutes ago. Don't go, he managed. Their eyes met again, and something passed between them. Something electric and terrifying and utterly impossible. I'm not going anywhere, Becky whispered. I promise. 3 hours later, Becky sat in the hospital waiting room, still in her stained uniform, drinking terrible vending machine coffee. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving her hollow and terrified. She'd just performed an emergency medical procedure without a license, in a foreign country, on a man who was apparently important enough that armed men in expensive suits now filled the corridor outside his room. "Miss Washington?" Becky looked up to find the younger doctor. He'd introduced himself as Dr. Lee during Kim Sung-oh's stabilization, standing before her with something like awe on his face. "How is he?" she asked. "Stable. Critical, but stable. We found 3 other injuries, a ruptured spleen, 2 broken ribs, and a concussion, but nothing immediately life-threatening now that we've decompressed the tamponade." Dr. Lee sat down beside her. "You saved his life. We declared him dead. We were wrong, and you were right. I saw the signs. Anyone with proper training would have..." "Dr. Han has 30 years of experience and missed it. I have 10 years and missed it. You've been out of medical school for how long?" 3 years. And I didn't graduate. I had to leave." "Why?" Becky's jaw tightened. "That's personal." "Fair enough." Dr. Lee studied her for a long moment. "Mr. Kim is asking for you. Demanding, actually. He won't settle down until he sees you." "I don't think that's appropriate. I'm not family. I'm not even supposed to be here. You're the woman who brought him back from the dead. I think appropriate went out the window about 3 hours ago." Dr. Lee stood, gesturing for her to follow. "Come on, before he pulls out his IV trying to find you himself." Kim Sung-oh's private room was less hospital and more luxury hotel suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline. The standard hospital bed had been replaced with something that looked like it cost more than a car, and stationed outside the door were 2 men in black suits with the kind of posture that screamed military training. Inside, propped up against a mountain of pillows, was Kim Sung-oh. His face was pale, bruised, but his eyes were sharp and alert as they tracked Becky's entrance. Various monitors beeped around him, IV lines snaked into his arms, and a chest tube drained fluid from his lungs, but he was undeniably alive. "You came," he said in Korean, his voice stronger than it had been in the ER. "You asked," Becky replied, hovering near the door like she might bolt at any second. "Come closer. I don't bite." A ghost of a smile crossed his features. "Usually." Becky moved to the chair beside his bed, hyper-aware of his eyes following her every movement. Up close, she could see details she'd never noticed at the cafe. A thin scar above his left eyebrow, the way his hair fell across his forehead, the surprising length of his eyelashes. Kim Sung-oh was handsome in a way that was almost aggressive, all sharp angles and dangerous eyes. "The doctors tell me you saved my life," he said. "They tell me I was dead, that my heart had stopped, that they'd given up." His eyes never left hers. "And you refused to accept that. I saw signs they missed. It wasn't heroic. It was observation. You stuck a needle into my chest without permission, without authority, risking everything to save a man you barely know. That sounds heroic to me." He shifted slightly, wincing at the pain. "Why did you do it?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications Becky wasn't ready to examine. Why had she run 6 blocks? Why had she pushed past doctors with decades more experience? Why had she risked everything for Kim Sung-oh? "Because you gave me a job when no one else would," she said finally. 3 months ago, I walked into your cafe with a resume that had Howard University Medical School on it, but no degree. You asked me one question: can you make a decent Americano? When I said yes, you hired me on the spot. No questions about why I left school, no judgment about what I'd failed to become. You just gave me a chance." Kim Sung-oh was quiet for a long moment. "Is that the only reason?" Becky's heart pounded. "I don't know what you mean. Every morning you bring me coffee at exactly 7:30. You know how I take it without me saying. You notice when I'm having a bad day and you leave a pastry on the saucer without charging me. You stay late to help Mr. Park close up even though you're not paid for it. And sometimes," he paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face, "sometimes I catch you watching me when you think I'm not looking." Heat flooded Becky's cheeks. "Mr. Kim Sung-oh. My name is Sung-oh." "That's inappropriate. You're my boss. You've had your hands inside my chest cavity. I think we're past formalities." Despite everything, Becky laughed. The sound burst out of her, half hysterical, entirely inappropriate. This is insane. You almost died. You did die. And now you're flirting with me? I'm not flirting. I'm being honest. Sung-O's hand moved across the bed, palm up, an invitation. I've been watching you too, Becky. Every day for 3 months. The way you move through the cafe like you're dancing. The way you speak Korean to the elderly customers, even though your grammar is terrible, because you know it makes them happy. The way your entire face changes when you smile for real, not the customer service smile, but the genuine one. You're on pain medication. You don't know what you're saying. I'm on pain medication that makes me brave enough to say what I've been thinking for months. His fingers stretched toward hers. Take my hand, please. Becky shouldn't. This was her boss. A man who'd almost died. A man who, based on the armed guards outside, was involved in things she didn't want to think about too closely. But her hand moved anyway, sliding into his. The contact sent electricity up her arm. Tell me about medical school, Sung-O said quietly. Tell me why you left. That's not a happy story. I just died and came back. I can handle unhappy. So Becky told him. About growing up in Baltimore. About being the first in her family to go to college. About her full scholarship to Howard. About falling in love with trauma surgery. About being the only black woman in most of her classes and working twice as hard to prove she belonged. About her father's stage 4 pancreatic cancer diagnosis at the end of her 3rd year. He didn't have insurance, she said, voice flat with old pain. And cancer treatment is expensive, doesn't even begin to cover it. I took a semester off to help my mom, but 1 semester became 2, and the medical bills kept coming. I had to choose, finish school or help pay for his treatment. What did you choose? What kind of question is that? I chose him. I'd choose him 1,000 times. Her voice cracked. But he died anyway. 6 months later, he was gone. And by then, I'd been out too long, lost my scholarship, couldn't afford to go back. I'm sorry. Don't be. He got 6 more months, 6 more months of life, of seeing his grandkids, of telling my mom he loved her. That's worth more than any degree. Sung-O's hand tightened on hers. And how did you end up in Seoul? My mom remarried, a military man stationed at Osan Air Base. She wanted to be with him, and I needed to start over. Somewhere, nobody knew me as the girl who almost became a doctor. So I came here, got a work visa through her husband's connections, and started applying for jobs. She laughed bitterly. Turns out a partial medical degree and no Korean language skills don't open many doors. They opened mine. You needed a waitress. That's different. I needed someone competent who wouldn't ask questions about why certain men in expensive suits came in for meetings every Thursday. Someone who could handle herself in uncomfortable situations. Someone smart enough to know when to see things and when to be blind. There it was, the acknowledgement of what Becky had been carefully not thinking about. You're not just a cafe owner. No. What are you? Sung-O studied her for a long moment, seeming to weigh how much truth to share. My family runs one of 3 organizations that manage certain business interests in Seoul. Import-export mostly. Some of it legal, some of it in gray areas, some of it decidedly not legal. You're in a gang. That's a crude way to put it, but essentially, yes. Becky should have pulled her hand away, should have walked out. Instead, she asked, the accident? Was it really an accident? Something dangerous flickered across Sung-O's face. No. Rival organization. They've been pushing into our territory for months. Today, they decided to send a message by running my car off the road. They tried to kill you. They succeeded briefly until you brought me back. Why are you telling me this? If you're smart enough to be in that world, you're smart enough to know that honesty is dangerous. Because you saved my life. Because I owe you the truth. And because... He paused, something vulnerable breaking through his controlled exterior. Because when I opened my eyes in that ER and saw you, heard your voice telling me I was safe, I realized something. I've been half alive for years, going through motions, managing business. But you make me feel actually alive. We don't know each other, don't we? 3 months of conversations every morning. You know I take my coffee with an extra shot because I have nightmares and don't sleep. I know you rub your left wrist when you're stressed because you broke it as a kid. You know I hate mornings, but love sunrise because my grandmother used to say, that's when the world forgives itself. I know you wanted to specialize in trauma surgery because you like fixing things that are broken. Knowing facts isn't knowing a person. Then let me know you. Let me take you to dinner when I'm out of this place. Let me learn everything else. Your favorite color, what makes you laugh, what you dream about at 3 in the morning? You're my boss. You're fired. Becky blinked. What? Effective immediately, you no longer work for me. That removes the power imbalance. Now will you have dinner with me? You can't just fire me to date me. I literally just did. And technically, it's not dating. It's thanking the woman who saved my life. Very different. Despite everything, the absurdity, the danger, the sheer insanity of the situation, Becky felt herself smiling. Really smiling, the kind Sung-ho had mentioned. You're ridiculous. I'm serious. One dinner. If you hate it, I'll rehire you, and we'll never speak of this again. But if you don't, he left the sentence hanging, full of promise and possibility. I need to think about it. Fair. His thumb traced circles on her palm. But while you're thinking, consider this. Life is short. I literally died today. Tomorrow isn't promised. So when something feels right, when someone makes you feel alive, maybe the smart thing is to stop overthinking and just take the chance. Before Becky could respond, the door burst open. A man strode in, late 40s, expensive suit, face carved from granite, and eyes that could freeze hell. He barked something in rapid Korean that Becky only partially caught, something about idiot and security breach, and nearly dying. Sung-ho's entire demeanor changed. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by cold authority. He responded in Korean too fast for Becky to follow, his voice sharp with command. The older man's eyes cut to Becky, and she felt the weight of his assessment. Then he said in accented English, "You are the woman who saved him. I'm Becky Washington. I worked at Mr. Kim's cafe." Kim Ji-hoon, he said, not offering his hand. Sung-ho's uncle, and second in command of the Kim family operations. He turned back to Sung-ho, switching to Korean. You're letting a stranger see you like this? In your condition, she could be working for the Choi family. Could be the one who arranged the accident. She saved my life, Samshan, Sung-ho replied in English, clearly for Becky's benefit. If she wanted me dead, she had the perfect opportunity. Or she's playing a longer game. Earn your trust, get close, then strike when you're vulnerable. Becky isn't playing any game. I can hear you, Becky interrupted, standing. And I'm standing right here. If you want to accuse me of something, do it to my face. Ji-hoon's eyebrows rose slightly. You have courage. Stupid courage, but courage nonetheless. I have no idea who the Choi family is. I don't know anything about your business except that it involves men in suits having quiet conversations over coffee. And I don't care. I saw someone dying and I helped. That's it. That's never it, Ji-hoon said flatly. You're involved now, whether you want to be or not. Samchan, Sung-ho started, but his uncle cut him off. The Choi family knows you survived. They'll want to know how. They'll investigate. And when they find out about her, he gestured at Becky, they'll see an opportunity, a weak point. Becky's blood ran cold. I need to leave. Now. Too late, Ji-hoon said, not without sympathy. You're in this now, Miss Washington. The question is what we do about it. We protect her, Sung-ho said, his voice carrying absolute authority despite being in a hospital bed. Around the clock. Best team. She doesn't go anywhere without security. I don't need protection. I barely know you. I'm not. This isn't. Becky's voice rose with each word, panic setting in. I saved your life and now what? I'm a target? I have armed guards following me. This is insane. I'm sorry. Sung-ho's expression was pained. I'm so sorry, but my uncle is right. The moment you saved me in that ER, you became connected to me, and my enemies will use that connection. Then I'll leave, go back to the States, disappear. They'll find you. The Choi family has resources, connections. You'd be a loose end, and loose ends. Ji-hoon didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Becky sank back into the chair, mind reeling. This morning she'd been a waitress. Now she was, what? A liability? A target? A prisoner? I'll keep you safe, Sung-ho said quietly, reaching for her hand again. I swear it. This is my fault, and I'll fix it. How? How do you fix being a target? By making it clear that harming you means war with the Kim family. By putting so much protection around you that anyone who tries will regret it. By by turning me into a kept woman under armed guard. That's not a life. It's temporary until we resolve the Choi situation. And how long will that take? Sung-oh and Ji-hoon exchanged a look. Neither answered, which was answer enough. I can't live like that, Becky whispered. I came here to start over, to be free, not to be trapped in some gilded cage because I made the mistake of saving someone's life. Then help us end it faster, Ji-hoon said unexpectedly. Both Becky and Sung-oh looked at him in surprise. What? The older man continued. She has medical knowledge. The Choi family head, Choi Dae-jung, has been dealing with health issues, heart problems, from what our sources say. If Miss Washington were to provide consultation, get close, she could gather intelligence. Absolutely not, Sung-oh snapped. You want to put her directly in danger? I want to give her agency. She's smart, capable, and has skills we don't. Or would you prefer she sit in a safe house going slowly insane? I prefer she stays alive. So do I, which is why I'm suggesting we use her strengths instead of just hiding her away like a porcelain doll. They argued in rapid Korean, voices rising, and Becky sat frozen between them. She should be terrified, should be planning her escape. Instead, she was thinking about what Ji-hoon had said, about agency, about using her skills. Stop, she said quietly. When they continued arguing, she raised her voice. Stop! Both men fell silent, turning to look at her. I'll do it, Becky said. Whatever intelligence gathering you need, I'll help. No, Sung-oh started. You don't get to decide for me, not anymore. You said life is short, that we should take chances when something feels right? Well, this feels right. I'm not going to hide while you fight some gang war. I'm going to help end it. You have no idea what you're suggesting. These aren't nice people. If they discover what you're doing, then they'll what? Kill me? They apparently want to do that anyway. At least this way I'm doing something useful. At least this way I have some control. Sung-oh looked at her with something like awe and terror mixed together. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Or the stupidest. Both, Ji-hoon said, but there was respect in his voice now. Both. And so began the strangest 2 weeks of Becky's life. By day, she worked at the cafe, still technically employed despite Sung-oh's dramatic firing, while Ji-hoon's people worked to position her as a medical consultant recommended through carefully crafted channels. By night, she visited Sung-oh in the hospital, where they talked for hours about everything and nothing. She learned that he'd taken over the family business at 25, when his father was killed by the same Choi family they were now fighting. That he'd spent 3 years consolidating power and building legitimate business fronts. That he donated anonymously to children's hospitals and medical scholarships. That his favorite food was his late mother's kimchi jjigae, and he'd spent years trying to recreate it without success. Why criminal business? Becky asked one night, curled in the chair beside his bed, while rain hammered against the windows. With your intelligence, your resources, you could do anything. Why choose this? Sung-oh was quiet for a long moment, staring out at Seoul's neon glow. I didn't choose it. I was born into it. My father, his father, 3 generations of Kim men running these operations. You don't walk away from that. Family is everything in Korean culture. Duty, honor, obligation. They're not just words. But you're miserable. How do you know that? Because I recognize the look. It's the same one I see in the mirror. The look of someone doing what they have to do instead of what they want to do. Sung-oh turned to face her fully. What would you do if you could do anything? Finish medical school, become a trauma surgeon, open a practice that serves underprivileged communities, people who can't afford care, make sure nobody has to choose between their education and their family's health the way I did. That's a beautiful dream. It's never going to happen. Medical school is expensive. I'm getting older, and now I'm apparently involved in gang warfare. She laughed without humor. Life had other plans. What if life's plans aren't final? Sung-oh reached for her hand, a gesture that had become natural between them. What if we could change them? I don't believe in fairy tales. Neither do I. I believe in hard work and strategy and taking opportunities when they appear. His thumb traced circles on her palm, the touch sending familiar electricity through her. Help me end this war with the Choi family. And when it's over, I'll pay for you to finish medical school. Any program, anywhere in the world. Consider it payment for saving my life. Becky pulled her hand back like he'd burned her. I don't want your money. Why not? I have more than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. You have a dream that was stolen by circumstance. Why can't I help? Because it feels like payment for services rendered. Like I'm a prostitute being rewarded for good behavior. That's not what I meant, isn't it? Rich man offers money to poor woman who helped him? How else am I supposed to interpret that? Sung-Oh's face darkened with frustration. You're deliberately misunderstanding. I'm trying to help you achieve your dream. I don't need saving, Sung-Oh. I've been saving myself my whole life. Everyone needs help sometimes. There's no shame in accepting it. There is when it comes with strings attached. What do you want? Gratitude? Loyalty? Something more? I want... He stopped, jaw clenched, clearly wrestling with words. I want to see you happy. I want to give you back what was taken. I want... Another pause. I want you. And not because I paid for your education or saved you from danger. I want you to want me because you choose to, not because you owe me. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Becky felt her carefully constructed walls cracking. This is a terrible idea. You're my boss. You're a criminal. We barely know each other. We've established I'm not your boss anymore. Yes, I'm a criminal, but I'm trying to transition to legitimate business. And we know each other better than most couples who've dated for months. I know you snore lightly when you're really tired. You know I have nightmares about my father's death. I know you're allergic to shellfish. You know I can't sing to save my life. When did you learn I'm allergic to shellfish? You ordered lunch 3 weeks ago and specifically asked if the gimbap had imitation crab. Real crab or no crab, you said. That's an allergy, not a preference. Becky stared at him. You remembered that? I remember everything about you. What you wear, how you move, the way your face changes when you're thinking about something sad. I've been memorizing you for months, Becky. So don't tell me we don't know each other. She should leave, should maintain professional distance. Instead, she found herself moving closer until she was perched on the edge of his bed. This is complicated. The best things always are. If we do this, I need honesty. Complete honesty. No secrets about your business, about the danger, about what we're walking into. Done. And when this is over, when the choice situation is resolved, we figure out if this is real or just adrenaline and gratitude. It's real, Sung-Oh said with absolute certainty. But yes, we'll prove it to you. Becky leaned forward, close enough that she could feel his breath on her face. One more condition. Anything. If I finish medical school, and that's a massive if, I do it on my own terms. Maybe you can help with connections or recommendations, but I pay my own way. I need to know I earned it. Your pride is going to be the death of me. Probably. Are we agreed? Agreed. Sung-Oh's hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek with devastating gentleness. Can I kiss you now? I've been wanting to since the moment I woke up and saw you in that ER. You were technically dead. That's a terrible time to be thinking about kissing. I was technically coming back to life. Perfect time. Becky closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was soft, careful, mindful of his injuries, but it sparked something fierce and consuming in her chest. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Sung-Oh was smiling. Worth dying for, he murmured. Don't joke about that. I'm not joking. You brought me back to life in every way that matters. The Choi family took the bait 3 days later. A phone call to the cafe asking if Becky Washington was available for a private medical consultation. They'd heard through reliable sources about her impressive emergency intervention at Seoul Memorial. Would she be interested in consulting for an elderly gentleman with cardiac concerns? It's him, Ji-hoon confirmed in Sung-Oh's penthouse. He'd been released from the hospital but still needed rest. Choi Dae-jung himself. He's heard about you and wants to meet. This is my fault, Sung-Oh said, pacing despite his injuries. I shouldn't have told the hospital staff what you did. Shouldn't have let the story spread. Actually, I spread it, Ji-hoon said calmly, through very careful channels. The Choi family needed to hear about Becky's skills without suspecting we wanted them to hear. You used me as bait, Becky said flatly. I gave you an opportunity to help. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing? Sam-chan, you should have asked her first. Sung-Oh started, but Becky held up a hand. It's fine. I agreed to help, and this is how I help. When do they want to meet? Tomorrow. His private residence in Gangnam. They'll send a car. No, Sung-ho said immediately. Too dangerous. We don't know their intentions. Their intentions are to have me examine an old man with heart problems. It's a medical consultation, not an assassination attempt. You can't know that. And we can't gather intelligence if I don't go. This is what we planned, what I agreed to. Sung-ho moved to her, taking both her hands. I can't lose you, not now, not when I just found you. You're not going to lose me, I'll be careful. I'll have your security following, and I'll pay attention to everything. Security details, number of guards, layout of the house, relationships between family members, everything you need to know. This is insane. You've said that before, multiple times actually, because it keeps being true. But there was resignation in his voice. He knew she was right, knew this was the plan. Fine, but you wear a wire, and at the first sign of trouble, you leave. I don't care if you're in the middle of examining him, you leave. Deal. The Choi family residence was a sprawling traditional hanok hidden behind modern walls in one of Gangnam's most exclusive neighborhoods. Becky arrived in the black sedan they'd sent, wearing the most professional outfit she owned, a navy dress that said doctor without being too formal. The security team that greeted her was extensive. 6 men visible, probably more hidden. They were polite but thorough, checking her medical bag with professional efficiency. The wire Ji-hoon had hidden in her watch went undetected. At least they didn't mention it. She was led through a beautiful courtyard where cherry trees bloomed despite the season, into a main house that blended traditional Korean architecture with modern luxury. And there, in a sun-filled room overlooking a koi pond, sat Choi Dae-jung. He was smaller than Becky expected, probably 70, with silver hair and a face carved by time into something both grandfatherly and dangerous. He wore traditional hanbok and smiled warmly as she entered. Miss Washington, he said in English better than Ji-hoon's. Thank you for coming. I've heard remarkable things about your skills. Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Choi. Though I should clarify, I'm not a licensed physician, just someone with medical training. Medical training that brought a dead man back to life. That's more impressive than most licenses. He gestured to a chair. Please sit. Tell me about the Kim Sung-ho case. The details fascinate me. And there it was. The real reason she'd been invited. Not for medical consultation, but for information about Sung-ho. Becky's mind raced, calculating what to reveal and what to hide. I'd rather not discuss another patient's case without consent, she said carefully. Medical ethics, even for someone without a license. Admirable. Choi's smile didn't reach his eyes. Let me be direct then. You saved the life of my enemy. A man whose father killed my brother. A man who stands between me and controlling operations in 3 districts. You understand my concern about your involvement. Becky's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. I saw someone dying and helped. That's all. I didn't know about your history. I still don't know the details. Don't you? You've been visiting Mr. Kim regularly, spending hours in his hospital room. My sources tell me you've also been to his penthouse. That suggests more than professional interest. With respect, Mr. Choi, who I spend time with isn't your business. It is when that person is Kim Sung-ho. He leaned forward, the grandfatherly facade slipping slightly. Let me explain something, Miss Washington. The Kim family and the Choi family have been at war for 3 generations. Blood has been spilled on both sides. Truces have been broken. Trust has been destroyed. And now you, an outsider with no loyalty to either side, have inserted yourself into this equation. I didn't insert myself anywhere. I helped someone who was dying. That's all. Is it? Or are you working for the Kim family, gathering information, playing spy while pretending to be an innocent bystander? The accusation was so close to the truth that Becky felt her stomach drop, but she forced herself to meet his eyes. I'm a waitress from Baltimore who happens to have medical training. I'm not qualified to be a spy. I'm barely qualified to make cappuccinos. Choi studied her for a long moment. Then unexpectedly, he laughed. You know what I like about you, Miss Washington? You're a terrible liar. Your voice is steady, but your hands are shaking. You meet my eyes, but I can see your pulse racing in your throat. You're terrified, but you're here anyway. That takes courage. Am I in danger? That depends. Are you loyal to Kim Sung-ho? Honesty or deception? Becky made a split-second choice. I care about him. I don't know if that's loyalty or just human decency, but I care what happens to him. Even knowing what he is, what his family has done, everyone has darkness in their past. That doesn't mean they can't choose different futures. Choi's expression softened slightly. You sound like my late wife. She always believed in redemption. He stood slowly, moving to the window. I didn't bring you here to threaten you, Miss Washington. I brought you here because I actually do have a heart condition. And I wanted to see for myself the woman who brought an enemy back from death. Why? Because if you can save someone you barely know, someone who could bring you nothing but trouble, perhaps you can tell me if I'm worth saving too. The request caught Becky off guard. She'd expected threats, manipulation, maybe violence, not vulnerability. You want me to examine you? I want you to tell me the truth. Will I live to see my grandson graduate university, or am I dying? Becky stood, moving to where Choi stood by the window. I'll need to examine you properly. Medical history, physical examination, maybe an EKG if you have equipment. I have everything you need. My personal physician can assist. For the next hour, Becky did what she'd been trained to do. She listened to Choi's heart, irregular rhythm, possible atrial fibrillation, checked his blood pressure, high, dangerously so, reviewed his medications, a complex cocktail that suggested multiple conditions being managed, ran an EKG that confirmed her suspicions. You have atrial fibrillation, she said finally, probably caused by years of hypertension. Your medication is managing it, but not well. You're at high risk for stroke. How long do I have? That's not how it works. With proper management, lifestyle changes, maybe a cardiac ablation procedure, you could live years, decades even. But if you continue as you are, stress and poor management, she trailed off. Be honest. A year, maybe 2. Probably less if you're under significant stress. Choi nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed something he already knew. Thank you for your honesty. Most doctors tell me what I want to hear. I'm not most doctors. I'm not even a doctor at all. No, you're better. You're someone who tells the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. He returned to his seat. I'm going to tell you something, Miss Washington. Something that could get us both killed if the wrong people hear it. Becky's mouth went dry. Maybe you shouldn't. I'm tired. Tired of the war. Tired of the violence. Tired of wondering which day will be my last. My grandson is 12. I want to see him grow up. And that means ending this conflict with the Kim family before it ends me. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the bridge. You care about Sung-oh, but you have no history with either family. No loyalty except to your own conscience. You could carry a message that would be killed if it came from anyone else. What message? That I'm willing to talk. Really talk. Not the performative nonsense we've done before. That I want peace before I die. That I'm willing to make concessions, redraw territory lines, find compromise. He leaned forward. But I need to know Sung-oh wants the same thing. And I need someone he trusts to verify my sincerity. You want me to be a mediator. I want you to be honest. Tell him what you saw here. Tell him I'm dying. Tell him I don't want my grandson to inherit this war, and ask him if he's willing to talk. Becky's mind reeled. This was more than intelligence gathering. This was an actual opportunity for peace. If I do this, I need assurances. No retaliation against me. No using me as leverage. You have my word, which I know means nothing coming from a criminal, but it's all I can offer. Why should I believe you? Because I have nothing to gain by lying and everything to gain from peace. Because my wife died in this war, caught in crossfire meant for me, and I won't let my grandson suffer the same fate. Because you're right, everyone has darkness, but we can choose different futures. He extended his hand. Help me choose a different future, Miss Washington. Becky looked at his outstretched hand. This could be a trap, could be manipulation, could get them all killed, or it could be exactly what it seemed. An old man tired of war, reaching for peace. She took his hand. He wants what? Sung-oh's voice was dangerously quiet. They were in his penthouse, Ji-hoon present, along with 2 of Sung-oh's most trusted advisors. Becky stood in the center of the room, feeling like she was on trial. Peace, she repeated. He's dying. Atrial fibrillation, uncontrolled hypertension, probably a year left at most. He wants to end the war before he dies. It's a trap, Ji-hoon said immediately. Classic strategy. Feign weakness, draw us into negotiations, then strike when our guard is down. I don't think so. I examined him. Saw his medical records. He's really sick. And Becky hesitated. He talked about his grandson, his late wife. He sounded like a man who regrets the life he's lived. Regret doesn't erase 3 generations of violence, one of the advisors said. His family killed Sung-O's father, your father, boss. How can we negotiate with that? Sung-O was silent, staring out at Seoul's skyline. Finally, what do you think, Becky? You saw him? Talked to him? Do you believe he's sincere? I think he's a complicated man who's done terrible things, but wants something better for his grandson. I think he's calculating and dangerous, but also tired and scared. I think... She moved to stand beside Sung-O. I think he's like you, someone who inherited a war they didn't start and is looking for a way out. That's a dangerous comparison, Ji-hoon warned. But is it wrong? Becky looked at Sung-O. You've told me you want to go legitimate, build a different future. This could be your chance. Or it could be a bullet in my head the moment I sit down at the negotiating table. Then don't sit at a table. Meet in neutral territory, public place, bring security, set conditions. But at least talk to him. Sung-O turned to face her fully. You realize if this goes wrong, if it is a trap, people will die. Maybe me, maybe you, maybe everyone in this room. I know, but if we don't try, the war continues. More people die anyway. At least this way there's a chance for something different. She's right, Ji-hoon said unexpectedly. Everyone turned to stare at him. What? I can admit when someone makes sense. We've been at war for 30 years. It's cost us blood, money, and stability. If there's even a 10% chance this is genuine, we'd be fools not to explore it. Samchan, you're the one who said it's a trap. It probably is. But wars end one of 2 ways, total victory or negotiation. We haven't achieved total victory in 3 decades. Maybe it's time to try the other option. Sung-O was quiet for a long moment. Then, set up a meeting, neutral location, full security on both sides, and Becky comes with us. What? No, I'm not. You're the bridge, remember? He trusts you, or at least, he trusts you more than he trusts me. Your presence signals good faith. Or it makes me a target, which is why you'll have 6 guards in body armor under your clothes. But I need you there, Becky. I need someone who can read him the way you did. Someone who can tell me if he's lying. Becky wanted to refuse, wanted to say this was beyond her job description, beyond what she'd signed up for. But looking at Sung-O's face, hope and fear warring in his expression, she found herself nodding. Okay, I'll go. But Sung-O, promise me something. Anything. If this works, if you make peace, you start transitioning out. Really out. No more criminal operations. No more danger. You build the life you told me you wanted. And if I do that, what do I get in return? Becky stepped closer until they were inches apart. Me, all of me. Not just stolen moments between crises, but a real relationship, a real future. Sung-O's hand came up to cup her face. You'd give up your dream of medical school for me? No, I'd pursue my dream alongside you. 2 people building different futures together. That sounds terrifying and perfect. It sounds insane, Ji-hoon muttered, which means it will probably work. The meeting was set for 3 days later in a high-end restaurant that catered to Seoul's elite. Private room, neutral territory, security sweeps by both sides. Becky spent those 3 days in a state of controlled panic, going through scenarios with Ji-hoon's team, learning emergency protocols, wearing her hidden wire like it was normal. If shooting starts, you drop and stay down, Ji-hoon instructed for the 10th time. Don't try to run, don't try to help, just make yourself as small a target as possible. Comforting. I'm not here to comfort, I'm here to keep you alive. The night of the meeting, Becky dressed in a dark blue dress that hid the thin body armor Ji-hoon had insisted on. Sung-O appeared in a black suit that made him look like he belonged on a magazine cover, dangerous and beautiful and entirely too distracting. Ready? He asked. Not even close. You? I've been preparing for this moment my entire life, still terrified. They arrived separately, entering through different doors. The restaurant was beautiful, traditional Korean elegance mixed with modern luxury. Their private room overlooked a garden where lanterns cast soft light on carefully manicured paths. Choi Dae-jung was already there, flanked by his own security. He looked smaller than Becky remembered, frailer, but his eyes were sharp as they tracked Sung-O's entrance. Kim Sung-O, he said in Korean. You look like your father. And you look like the man who killed him, Sung-oh replied, voice flat. Perhaps we can move past old wounds. For both our sakes. They sat across from each other, two apex predators circling, while Becky positioned herself slightly to the side, present but not between them. What followed was 2 hours of the most intense negotiation Becky had ever witnessed. Territory boundaries were discussed, redrawn, argued over. Old grievances were aired with brutal honesty. Both men traded barbs and concessions, testing each other's limits, finding compromise in unexpected places. And slowly, impossibly, something began to take shape. A treaty. Actual peace terms that both sides could live with. My grandson, Choi said finally, I want him out of this life. I want him to have choices I never did. Can you understand that? Sung-oh was quiet for a long moment. Then, I have someone who makes me want the same thing. Someone who makes me want to be better than what I was raised to be. His eyes found Becky's. So yes, I understand. Then we have a deal. Choi extended his hand. Peace, real peace. And may our children never inherit our wars. Sung-oh took his hand. And just like that, 3 generations of violence ended with a handshake in a restaurant overlooking a garden in Seoul. 6 months later, Becky stood in the courtyard of Seoul National University's medical school, acceptance letter in hand. Sung-oh had kept his word, transitioning his business, going legitimate, even donating millions to medical education programs. And Becky had kept hers, accepting his help with applications and recommendations, but paying her own way with scholarships and her own savings. You did it, Sung-oh said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. Dr. Becky Washington has a nice ring to it. I'm not a doctor yet, just a student. Again, you brought a dead man back to life. You negotiated peace between criminal families. You convinced a stubborn Korean man to change his entire life. If that's not a doctor, I don't know what is. Becky turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd almost died on a hospital gurney and instead became her entire future. You know this won't be easy. Medical school is brutal. I'll have no time, no energy, probably no social life. Good thing I'm patient and stubborn and completely in love with you. You never actually said that before, the love part. I was waiting for the right moment. This is the right moment? Every moment with you is the right moment. He kissed her softly, thoroughly in front of the medical school where she'd restart her dream. I love you, Becky Washington. I loved you from the moment you refused to let me stay dead. And I'll love you through every sleepless night, every exam, every crisis, until you're Dr. Washington and beyond. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm Korean. We're not known for romance. That was my best shot. Becky laughed, the sound full and free and entirely genuine. It was perfect. You're perfect. This is perfect. So we're doing this? Med school, legitimate business, building a real life together? We're doing this. No more death, no more war. Just life. Complicated, messy, beautiful life. And there, in the shadow of the medical school, where Becky would rebuild her dream, in the arms of the man who'd given her a second chance at everything, she finally understood something crucial. Sometimes the worst moments, being declared dead, watching your dreams die, facing impossible choices, are just the universe clearing space for something better. Sung-oh had died on that gurney, and Becky had brought him back, not just to life, but to living. And in the process, he'd done the same for her. They walked into their future together, two people who'd saved each other in every way that mattered, ready to build something neither had thought possible. A life worth living, fought for with everything they had and chosen with clear eyes and full hearts.